We have Professor Mary-Helen Armour from York University. We are also joined by Professor Andreas Heyland from the University of Guelph.
Right from the first time I used it, I had a very experienced TA, luckily, who was helping me with this. And she said, you really notice from start to finish, because I did a number of smaller assessments. I think I did 10 smaller assessments. You could really see from the beginning of the year to the end of the year how much the student work had improved, and how even the comments from the students on, like what they recognized their peers needed to improve, how that improved over the year. And I think especially for the first year students, because I'm teaching a general science, I've got a very diverse student body, that kind of soft skill of being able to see other people's work and assess other people's work, and then take back the feedback to improve, I think was a huge thing. For each sort of topic I give them a short critic where you're now looking at getting to those higher levels of thinking or being able to apply it. And because they now peer assess, it makes it more of a collaborative kind of thing. And I think it's very, very useful because they also sort of see different perspectives on how to answer a question. And it allows them to do more smaller assignments, more smaller assessments. I no longer have final exams in my courses. I've entirely done away with that, particularly in the online environment. It took the educational development a while to convince me to do that, but I think the critic really helped, because now I can get this sort of continuous evaluation.
With respect to critic, I actually let them work together on the assignments. I just always make it sure, because you can't really avoid that. Like I think, and I encourage them, because I think it's important that they can try to solve problems together. I just always make sure they know that they have to submit their own work, so they can work together on the question, but what they actually submit has to be their own response. And so that's sort of like, usually the quality is pretty high, I would say, of the submissions. The grades are fairly high.
One of the problems in first year is you get a lot of cut and paste. So I have students, I tell them, like, if you see something like that, flag it, because they can either flag inappropriate comments or they can put it in the disputes. So I'd say a certain number of my disputes are actually students flagging, like, I marked this one student's assessment and it seems to be all cut and paste. Do you want to check it? And it makes it easy for me to find it. So I've used it that way. I think in the first year classes I have, the biggest problem is they all want to be generous and they help each other out. Mm-hmm. And then when the TAs regrade it, they get a rude shock. And I warn them ahead of time that, giving your peers a high grade is not necessarily the best thing. The point of this is to learn and to give constructive criticism. And I go into a discussion of what constructive criticism is, and like what are the points they really need to bring out. I mean, I tell them, like, you should tell your peers what they did well, what they did poorly, and what they didn't do and they probably should have. Like I said, you got to focus on those three.
The way I structure the rubric is that I clearly separate, grammar, spelling, things like that from the content. I think that's really important, because, students could really kind of jump in when they evaluate peers and say, well, this is just terribly written, and give it a bad grade. So I try to keep that separate. I also, especially things like grammar and organization, I try to kind of judge them binary. It's like either satisfactory or not, right? Like it's not, so that they don't go into too much detail. But then for the conceptual understanding, I try to differentiate a lot more into different levels.
The one comment I get in, I'd probably say about half the disputes, is I worked really hard and I think I deserve a better mark. And then I have to go explaining to them that it's not about how hard you work, it's about the quality of the answer you produce. You could have produced a great answer in 20 minutes. I don't know that. That's irrelevant. It's how good a quality of answer you produce. It's not how hard you worked on it. It's not how long you worked on it. It's not how good you think it is. It's what the instructor thinks it is, and how your peers assess it against the rubric. And this is a really rude shock for, I think, some first year students.